Hello, welcome to Walk in the Park. My name is Tony Ingram, and this episode, let's see, where are we here? Okay, episode 100, our 100th episode, March 11th, 2015. Okay, so today we're going to take a look at Cayuga Lake, mostly, and answer the question, did Cayuga freeze? Cayuga Lake has been having ice form over it, as most of you know, if you're watching this show and live in the Ithaca area or anywhere around Cayuga Lake. You may have been looking at the lake and saying, look, it's going to freeze. Did it freeze all the way? Well, that's one of the questions that we're going to try to answer today. So first, we're going to take a little trip up to New Hampshire. This is Lake Winnipesaukee, which was not, this picture was just a little bit ago. See if I can find that. No, I don't have a notes on that. But anyway, it was in the Daily News, New York Daily News. The Lake Winnipesaukee in New Hampshire freezes over in the winter, and when it does, and the ice gets thick enough, they actually put an airport on it for the winter. So you can see all those small planes down there. So Lake Winnipesaukee. That was a link from the Facebook page of the East Hill Flying Club. I found that. So we're going to take a look at closer to home. See if you can recognize this image. What in the world is that? Some kind of ice on the window pane or something, or maybe a marble surface or granite or something? No, this is a NASA photograph from space showing the eastern Great Lakes. The upper left is Lake Huron, and just to the right of that up is Georgian Bay and Lake Huron. Straight down on the bottom, just a little left of center on the bottom, is Lake Erie, and Lake Erie was frozen over. This was taken, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, maybe even last week. And I think, yeah, this actually might have been like March 6th. And then just above that to the right center is Lake Ontario. And you can see that there's a lot of stuff on that. That's all ice. Lake Huron is mostly frozen over. Lake Ontario is more than half frozen over. And Lake Erie is all frozen over. Lake Erie is pretty shallow, so it froze pretty well. And then just to the lower right of Lake Ontario, in the lower right quadrant of the picture, you see those two scratches there. Those are, on the left, Seneca Lake and Cayuga Lake. So let's get in a little closer on those. Looking from space, this was early last week, I think, maybe the third or something like that. And you can see that Cayuga Lake looks a little cloudy, and that cloudiness on it is actually ice seen from space. Now, each pixel in this picture is 250 meters, so the resolution is not very great, and because we're so far up in space, I don't know what the altitude is. But quite a bit of ice on Cayuga Lake shown there. And all the other Finger Lakes, which are hard to make out in this picture, are frozen. So I did this. Aha. Now they're all labeled there. Conesus Lake on the far west. You can see a line going down to it. Hemlock Lake. Honeoye Lake, which is a very shallow lake that freezes regularly. In fact, most of the Finger Lakes do freeze in the winter. Canandaigua Lake. Keuka Lake. That's two branches. Canadice Lake is another little lake in the western Finger Lakes. Are all frozen. Then you go off to the east. You got Owasco Lake. Can you see that? Skaneateles Lake and Otisco Lake. And Otisco and Skaneateles are part of the water supply of Syracuse. And then way up in the upper right, you see a white patch. That's actually Oneida Lake, which is not one of the Finger Lakes. But that's all frozen over. So there's 11 Finger Lakes here, and 9 of them are frozen over, and a lot of Cayuga is frozen over. So let's see. I'm going to look down here. One question is, some people say, well, there's ice on Seneca Lake. How come you don't see that here? And there's more ice on Cayuga Lake than you see. Well, some of the ice is probably not visible from space because it's black ice. It's thin ice. And it doesn't have snow on it, it hasn't been disrupted, and it doesn't reflect light particularly. So we actually have probably quite a bit more ice on the lake, or we had, than is visible from space. Now here is a comparison of last year on May 6th. These are all May 6th. By the U.S. Weather Service in Binghamton. Let's see if I got the notes on that. No, okay. They compared last year on March 6th. I'm sorry, did I say May 6th? March 6th. With last year and this year, and there's more ice on Cayuga Lake than there was a year ago. So why is that? Well, I think it's because we had such a long period in February of uninterrupted cold weather. Now, it's been a very long time since the last time that Cayuga froze over, something like 36 years. So this is really going to be a memorable year. And it's come very close to freezing over. So let's see what people's different opinions have been. We're going to go up with the East Hill Flying Club again. This is a photograph they put up. I do have notes from this one. They put up on their Facebook page. And this guy named Mike Brown posted this on February 28th, so a little over a week ago. And it reads, Cayuga Lake is freezing rapidly. There's only one stretch of open water between Milliken Station, that's where the power plant is, and you might be able to make that out just right of center in this panoramic shot. Milliken Station and Ithaca. If this cold weather keeps up, it might be one of the very rare years when the lake freezes end to end. And on average, the lake historically has frozen end to end about every 15 years. But it hasn't done that since 1979, and I'm not even convinced it did it then. That's when I first started working in the parks in the winter then, and I don't remember it freezing past Taughannock Falls, but maybe it was all black ice and I just didn't see it. But anyway, so here is a picture from another East Hill Flying Club picture. Look at the notes on that one. This was on, or at least it was posted on March 3rd. And they said, not yet, kind of perverse amusement, but we have suffered a hard winter and should at least make the record books. Anyone know when the lake last froze completely? Well, yes, 1979 is what is asserted. And like I say, about every 15 years before that, on average. So this picture shows an area just a few miles north of Ithaca, 4 or 5 miles north of Ithaca, that is open water, at least was open water. And around the Ithaca Yacht Club on the left-hand side of the lake there, that would be the Ithaca Yacht Club area, the upper portion of that. You see a little point sticking out left of center. We're actually going to go down there and take a look at that. So here's another shot. And what did they say with this one? Anything? Let's see. No, that's okay. Just another one. They said Cayuga Lake freeze up, light winds and cold might do it. Only this one pocket left of open water. Amazing year. So that's the same pocket of water. I don't know why that one has been resisting freezing. It's interesting, but don't have any answers. Some people have said, well, maybe it's lake source cooling. And lake source cooling does have its water intake around there somewhere, but it isn't operating in the wintertime. And in the summer, its output of warmer, slightly warmer water is down near the Cornell sailing down in the lower right of this picture, so it wouldn't have anything to do with lake source cooling. There's another shot. Okay, so this one would be 4 days later, so I'm not sure. This is probably around, well, it's posted on March 6th. The ice is a bit more complete. This picture's from over Myers Point looking back toward Ithaca. I flew all the way to the north end of the lake. There are only open areas near north of Milliken Station, but much of what looks like open water is really dark, thin ice. So yeah. So this is a picture, aerial picture taken by Bill Hecht. This is up in Lavana, which is between Union Springs and Aurora. Looking north, in the very upper part of the picture, upper center there, you can see the north end of the lake is frozen. So here, this is just a map showing you where that is, Aurora, and then the purple thing there is where the pictures were taken, more or less. Lavana is the area. This is looking south down towards Ithaca from that same area, but you can't see all the way to Ithaca. So you can see a lot of thin ice on the lake that probably doesn't show up. There's some open areas too, but there's thin ice, and Looking across the lake to the left there, you see there's probably open water. So, but I think that's come and gone, because I saw a message from somebody that that lives in Lavana. Said, no ice there today. That was a few days ago. So a lot of variability here. We're going to go back down towards Ithaca. This is a view from long view on Route 96B south of Ithaca, looking north of the lake, and it looks like there's open water, and that may be open water. It may just be wind-blown ice that doesn't have much snow on it. Looking down to Stewart Park at the south end of the lake, and we're actually going to drop down there, and some nice views right from the lake. Now it looks like a dark area out in the on the water there. It's not water on the ice. Well, it is water, frozen water. But that's actually just a shadow of a passing cloud. There's plenty of ice down the south end of the lake. So I took a few pictures of the willows and the lake shore, looking back towards the pavilions, and then off to the southwestern part of the lake and the dock and so forth. Now looking over to the mouth of Cayuga Inlet, you might be able to make out on the right, upper right, you can see a red thing. That is one of the lighthouses, and then the upper left is another white thing. That's one of the also one of the lighthouses. Here, a little closer in on the lighthouse, it'll be the left-hand side of the inlet as your mouth of the inlet as you're heading north. So then some more pictures of the willows along the shore. Again, that dark area in front is not water. That is just a shadow from a passing cloud. Here's my favorite. I posted this on my Facebook page and got a lot of response. People really love that picture. Go sit in a bench. It was a quiet day. We had a couple of very quiet days, which are actually very good for ice forming, except it may not have been cold enough, frigid enough. So that was nice. Shadows from the willows on the snow on the lake. And some nice effects. Okay, so do I dare go out onto the ice? Well, it's pretty thick there. I mean, usually you get a shelf of ice at the south end of the lake. It's been forming for a while, and a lot of people did go out there. There I am walking out. I'm a couple of 100 yards from shore, and I was very careful not to go anywhere that I thought was the least bit risky, but there was plenty of footprints and tracks of skis and what have you. So, and probably some other devices. And then looking around, looking across the lake to the west, look at all those tracks. Looking straight down the lake to the north. I always say down when I'm looking north. I don't always say it, but often do, because that's downstream. That's which way the water moves, very slowly. Someone else provided this picture of people in the south end of the lake. Ice fishing. I've seen quite a few people ice fishing the south end of the lake now. In the last couple of years, they've been doing that because the ice has been thick enough to support them. Again, looking to the northwest, the east shore, a little closer in the middle there, upper center, is the Cornell Sailing Center, and Lake Source Cooling's back in there too. All right, and also East Shore Park is to the left of the Cornell Sailing Center. There's a little tiny park, which is the only access in the town of Ithaca, public access to the lake. Looking back from where I was standing and taking those pictures back to Stewart Park, so you can see how far I was from the shore. Again, looking back to Stewart Park, and I took this shot because I like the glint from the snow, because the snow had a crust on it, and the glint off the snow. So, all right, so we're going to go back and take a look at that area along the west shore, that a couple of miles up. We'll go back up to this picture, and you can see, well, the lower part of the picture is where I was down at Stewart Park, and then you can see there's quite a bit of ice for a mile or two going north, and then there's this open water, and then the ice continues on beyond that for many, many miles. We saw in the satellite picture that it doesn't go all the way necessarily, but let's go on up to the Ithaca Yacht Club, which is at the northern edge, the upper edge on the left of that big open area. standing on the pier there. And there were a lot of ducks in this open water because there was very little open water on the lake, and this is where they could feed, so to find whatever they could. Looking north, you can kind of see the edge of the ice there. Looking back towards Ithaca, back to the southeast corner of the lake. A lot of ducks in the water there. A lot of them were redhead ducks and probably some scops and other things. So there were bird watchers there too. Now this is some of that thin ice. This is looking north along the west shore. That's some of that thin ice that you can see how it reflects the trees along the shore there and the sky. That's probably, some of that is reflection of clouds, I don't know, and some of it is just, I don't know, bubbles on the ice or whatever. And on the edge of the ice there are a lot of birds. So let's zoom in a little bit, and there's a lot of geese, Canada geese, and just left of center you see some white birds. Those are tundra swans in migration probably, or probably have started migrating, and they are waiting for things to open up, and meanwhile they're hanging out here. Here's another picture, and you can see the swans again and the geese. I don't know if you can make out extreme right center. There's a couple of white dots. That's actually two swans flying out of the picture. So you can see the ice line. See it in both of these pictures. You can see the ice line, and it goes on for many miles north of there. But for some reason, this area has stayed mostly ice-free. As the waves splash against the pilings around the docks, it builds up ice on there, these skirts of ice, and this happens most winters on most docks, but it's very funny looking. It's kind of fun. So there were some photographers and bird watchers had gathering here. The word had spread on the internet that there were some interesting birds there. So there was photographers like this woman lying down in the snow here. She's looking at something. She's got something in her sights. I'm not sure what she's actually has. Here's a couple, actually three more. One of them, I guess the farthest one, actually I'm not sure which one had a spotting scope. At least two of them just had cameras with amazing lenses on them. And they were I know they were looking at a rare duck, at least rare in this part of the world, called the tufted duck. So let's take a look at that now. This is not that duck. This is actually one off the internet, off of Wikimedia. In fact, maybe I have some information about that. Oh yeah, that was by Andreas Trepte. It's probably a European picture. So this is a duck that normally is found in Eurasia, but in the winter sometimes they appear on the North American coasts, and here was one inland on Cayuga Lake, and got the birding community very excited out to see this tufted duck, because who's seen one of those before? I certainly hadn't. So let's go on up to Taughannock Falls and go for a swim. There's a swimming area, totally locked in. Go out, swim out to the float, go diving off of there, totally locked in with ice. So that's not going to work. Then just along the shore, this is the southern edge of the Taughannock Point. Right in the corner with the main shoreline there is a little bit of open water for some reason. Maybe there's some outflow coming off the slope there that keeps the water stirred up and warmed up enough not to freeze. And there's a whole lot of waterfowl there that were, I guess, trying to feed. Well, in yesterday's paper, March 10th, there was an article and photographs about a dog that went out on Cayuga Lake. This is by Simon Wheeler of the Ithaca Journal. I borrowed their picture. And his dog headed out off at Taughannock Point, and the ice was very thin, and it broke through in a few places and finally stopped and was terrified and had to be rescued. So these guys are from the Ithaca Fire Department. Let's see, I don't have their, oh, I thought I had their information. But anyway, they're out there rescuing. They took a long time. They took this boat out. They broke through a few times, but they had special dry suits on here for cold water rescue. And they eventually got the dog to come over to their little dinghy there, and they got him back in, and he got taken care of. So he's fine, but there's quite a little drama out there. So don't you go out on that ice, or you'll end up like the dog maybe, The ice down around Ithaca and Stewart Park was okay, although now we're having a thaw, so I don't recommend going out there because the streams like Cayuga Inlet, Cascadilla Creek, Fall Creek, they're all going to be flowing good, bringing meltwater in, and that's going to warm up things and melt the ice. Could make it pretty unstable out there. So not a good idea to continue walking out on Cayuga Lake or anything like that. So you drive up to the overlook to at Taughannock Falls, and you can see way north that the ice continues. So we're going to take a look here. Go to the overlook. Oh, look how that is frozen up. Getting a little closer. I have never seen, and I used to work at Taughannock. I worked at Taughannock for 24 years. I have never seen the ice pile up higher than this. I may have seen it as much as this maybe once before, but it's more than halfway up the cliff now. Usually there's this big broad dome like you see here at the base that builds up, and then this really high cone forming right under the waterfall is just totally amazing. So amazing ice formations there. So it's probably worth looking at too, and you get with the thaw, this could get pretty exciting. And what happens sometimes is that when you have that much ice, the meltwater, the thaw water, will cut quite a canyon through the ice. So that's kind of fun too. So I want to take a trip up to Taughannock sometime this week, especially. Well, I think it's going to be warm again on Friday, so it'd be a good time to go and see what's happening with the meltwaters. That's pretty exciting. So, well, we're going to take a look at a short video that I have of Taughannock. Okay, so that's kind of fun. Now let's go down to Ithaca, see what's happening with Cascadilla Creek. It's pretty frozen up. Let's look at this beautiful gate that Cornell Plantations had built there. Look, it says a sign that says closed for the winter. The gorge is closed for the winter, but you can still see that first waterfall. It is completely quiet, although maybe it's picking up now, so who knows. So then we're going to go down to Ithaca Falls. I showed some of this footage last week, but we'll have another minute or so here to look at Ithaca Falls in the ice before the thaw has come. Well, you'll never see, I think, Ithaca Falls um, icy or more icy than that. Although, like I say, it's probably changing now. Well, we don't have much time left, just a couple of minutes, so I'm just going to run it out here with some interesting pictures of some of the parks around here, some historic stuff. We're going to go down to Treman State Park and go into what we normally know as the upper entrance. Ooh, summertime, look at that. The upper entrance here, the entrance gorge, or you walk in, you look in the back there, just upper center, you can see the stone arch bridge. Our show last week featured Treman then and now, Treman Park then and now. So if you want to go to my blog, walkinpark.com, you can see that show. It's got an amazing amount of photographs. But here's a photograph that my friend Bill Heck found in an old stereograph here. That same spot, there's no bridge, there's a log across the stream, and there's some guys that are just relaxing. So if you look over to the right of that notch in the rock there, here's a couple of guys chilling out in the, I'm sure they didn't use that term, in the gorge, the edge of gorge. I'm not sure how they got up there, clambered up or whatever. But let's look at this picture. And you look at the notch where they're sitting, and then we'll look back up at this one, and right in the upper right there, you can see that same notch. That's pretty cool. Same notch. We change, but nature changes a little less rapidly. So I'm just going to keep going here till we run out of time. Oh, here's an old picture, again from Bill Heck, of the trail at Treman by the gorge, by Lucifer Falls. The big waterfall there is fun. Here's what it is today, with the nice stone walls that were built back in the 20s and the 30s. But back 100 years ago or more, it was just rickety railings and what have you. It was not developed like it is today, not as safe as it is now. And this sort of stuff didn't last very long. It constantly had to be replaced. So again, this is what we have today. That won't be opened up until the scalers, they call it, go in next month. In April, they will go down the cliff, rappel down the cliff, these park employees with firemen's pikes, these long poles, and knock off all the winter loosened rock. The shale splits up really badly, and it will come down any time after that. So they have to go down and knock everything off they reasonably can to minimize the risk of stuff falling on your head. So, okay, about let's go just go to Taughannock Falls here. This is an old picture that somebody came up with. Look at those people down at the bottom of the falls. You're not supposed to go there these days by the bottom of the falls, but they are celebrating the magnificence of the falls. And notice the lip of the falls is pointing out in a point. Okay, well, that's all we've got time for. So thank you for joining me, and we'll see you again soon.